All right.
Excuses. Just before we started, Justin was saying, well, I could talk about the reason I had the podcast out late this week.
Yeah, which was my fault, and we'll get into it.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
How's your week been?
Pretty busy. A lot busier than I planned on it being. It just really filled up.
Right.
I have lately been, and this is a great position to be in, but like I have found myself needing to be so defensive of my time now.
Mm-hmm.
Like if something comes up and whether it's a personal thing with you or a gig or a whatever, like I need to jump on it and get it on all 6 of the calendars that I'm a part of, because I just have to be incredibly defensive and just go like, if something needs to happen at a certain time, it needs to go on the calendar immediately because, again, great position to be in, but, people will book my time.
Mm-hmm. It's so good that you have an assistant now. You've had so many fewer conflicts and double bookings and stuff since Kristen started handling your calendar.
There's been a lot less. And, and at the same time, she does an amazing job, but that's why I have to be defensive if I book anything for myself.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, which I will tell Kristen that I'm doing something. Mm-hmm. But, like, the other night we went to see a movie, and that needed to go on the calendar, and I'm not asking my assistant to book times I go places with you.
I had it on our calendar, which she can see.
Well, yeah, sure, but like that's what I mean. It needed to be on the calendar because, if it seems open.
So Kristen can see like all of our date nights, all of our book writing sessions, like everything we do that's on our shared calendar.
Yep, and Kristen I have a shared calendar with her, and it's working great.
And then a shared calendar with Cody, and a shared calendar with the Petty Nicks Experience.
And Jonathan. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's all over the place. So, there's like literally like 6 calendars. So every event I'm doing, when you look at my Google Calendar, it's just like
6 of them.
It's great. You know what I mean? Like, how could you complain about people wanting you to do stuff?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, to get back to why I had the podcast out late, which was totally my fault because I was editing it. Wednesdays are normally my at-home, often Zoom call days. Like, it's midweek. It's a good time to just not go to the studio and get those kinds of things done. And, as it turned out, I was booked to work with Sherry Nunn on finishing up her album, or the portion of it that I'm doing. Turns out I'm also gonna mix that record, but I did 3 songs for her, and we got together Wednesday afternoon for 4 hours to finish those off, and then I had to rush off to a rare Howl at the Moon gig. Which is the dueling pianos thing that I do very occasionally. John Sherman, a genius musician, incredible guy, love being around him. He was explaining to me, actually, they just don't get that many gigs where people are willing to pay for the 4-piece version. Right? So what they normally might do is it's 2 guys with pianos, men or women, and they trade back and forth, and it's all request and whatever, and then you can pay a little bit more and you get a drummer, and you can pay for the full boat, which is where you get a lead instrument. And that's where I come in a couple times a year. And it's so funny where, I'm the lead instrument, but the other guys are like taking the requests and singing the songs and covering it all on piano. And my main job is just killing time.
Like in a song, like for a solo?
Yeah, that's my job. I hang out and sort of play rhythm until for some reason we want to extend a song, whether that is just literally killing time, like let's just fill up some time and we've we contractually have to play for 3 hours. So like, Justin, take it for a while, and you know, or sometimes it's a little more fun, and maybe the dance floor is full, and they'll kick solos to me or whoever's the lead person, just to like, well, if they're dancing to this song, let's keep playing this song.
Right.
So, guitar solo, do another chorus, guitar solo again, do another chorus. Like if it's working. But anyway, we were at the Gaylord Hotel, which is this massive complex of a hotel that is located right next to the airport, and it's mainly about business conventions because it's right by the airport. And it has these huge ballrooms and the whole 9 yards. And we were it was like it was like a hangar of it. It was just the biggest. You could not imagine how echoey this room was. It was just like an air hangar. It was huge.
Gosh.
It was 10 football fields worth of like this.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, this huge, unbelievably huge, untreated, open room.
Oh wow, I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it was just everything was just echoing like
How many
crazy.
people were there? Was it full at all?
Yeah, there were a good 1,000 people there.
Okay.
3 of which were paying attention to us. We were definitely background, and and it was rough too because this is a phenomenon that happens all the time. I'm aware I'm doing all the talking, but so often, you know, this happens with wedding gigs, corporate gigs, all these things. No one pays attention at all until like the last 10 minutes, and then they're all upset that you're ending, and you're like, no, come on, more songs.
Yeah.
And you're like, we've been doing this for 3 hours.
And with them, you do it without a break.
With them, we do it without a break. Although they were very nice. I forget the name of the company, but they were very nice, and they were like, no, you guys hit up all the food things. I mean, they had like 20 or 30 food stations.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not joking. Like, name a food. They had a station for it.
That's enormous.
They had burgers.
Wow.
They had tacos. They had sushi. They had hot dogs. They had Italian food. They had Thai food. They just like all of these things just ringing this. It was this huge corporate party. And they were super nice, and they were like, no, you guys eat, you guys drink, get whatever you want. So the thing about with Hal, maybe no gigs, but if you feel like taking a break, you just take a break because
the show can go on without you.
no one's paying attention anyway. So that's not true. People do love it, and I'm exaggerating. Throughout the night, people were definitely clapping, and they were very appreciative of being a jerk and I'm over exaggerating, but like, the awkward thing I was going to get to is, at the very end, there were 2 women dancing, and they were very upset that we were done at 10 o'clock. And then a guy who was sort of dancing with them came up and offered us kind of a large tip, to be discreet about it, to play one more song. And so our band leader was like, yeah, okay, we'll do it, blah, 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 blah. Well, in the time it took for that transaction to go on, the women wandered off.
Oh!
So he was paying to have one more dance with the 2 ladies, and then in the time it took for that transaction to happen, they got distracted and wandered off.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, it was rough. And
it's awful.
And we were like, hey, you know, you can have the money back. I mean, obviously.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, nah, I'll just do it, whatever. You know, like at that point. But it was just like, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
What song did he request?
I honestly don't even remember. I have no idea. With that group, I very rarely know. Well, you never know what's coming next because it is all request, and it is all piano based, so it's a lot of like Billy Joel, which I am not super familiar with, and a lot of like Steely Dan and a lot of ABBA, like very popular stuff. But just like I do have a weird hole in my musical listening, there's just stuff I have not paid a ton of attention to. Not because I don't think it's good or whatever. It's just like you just can't know everything. So there are times we're playing songs and I'm hanging in there, but I will figure out about 3/4 of the way through the song what song we are playing.
You're just playing by ear the whole time?
Usually.
Yeah.
You know, or a lot of times I can see their hands on the piano, and so I can go, okay, I get it. And but a lot of times I don't know what song we're playing for quite a while.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's the gig, and that's what makes it fun. But I was,
So that's your excuse.
that is my excuse.
That's a pretty convincing excuse.
Winded excuse for where I thought I had time to do it on Wednesday, and then I woke up on Wednesday and was like, oh no, I don't have any time to do it. So
neither did I, because I was running around like crazy.
I mean,
too.
you had, that was a long stretch of 10 minutes of me talking. Sorry, guys.
Blah 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 blah
But
blah.
excuses.
Yeah. Gosh, what do I even talk about? There's just a million things going on right now. I'm working hard, feeling a little burned out. But it's gonna calm down soon. March is pretty insane with
Right.
gigs and classes and just lots of different things. It's not that I have too much to do. It's really more that I have too many things to do. I feel very distracted. There's all these Performance High classes. There's a Performance High showcase, playing my first Diamond Empire showcase event tomorrow night. We've got Petty Nick's gigs. I've got a Pamela Makala gig. We're going to move a studio in Denver. I mean, just like the number of threads I'm trying to keep track of right now, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm very feeling the same way.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, that's not interesting for a podcast. So let's talk about something.
Well, take your choice. You got
know.
notes right there.
I got notes that I'm looking at. Yeah.
Let's jump into, tell me about this Diamond Empire gig you have.
You know all about it because
Well-
you've been hearing me play those songs.
I have been, and we talked about it last week, but how's the prep going? Because you have been definitely working on it.
Yeah, the prep's going great.
Okay.
I feel quite ready. Quite ready.
Yeah.
There were a couple songs I had to learn, but they were like 2 Maroon 5 songs, which are both just 4 chords. Well, one of them's got a bridge, but
This love, though, is a lot more complicated than you would think. The more
is.
times I've heard it, the more I've been
Yeah.
like, wow, that's some sophisticated harmony.
there are 3 different turnarounds at the end of the chorus.
Right.
And there's a sharp 5 in there, and there's a 7 and a dominant 7. And it's really fun. It's fun. It's funky. It's not like difficult playing. And now that it's in my head,
Yeah.
No, I feel so ready that most of the songs are memorized. I'm gonna take my iPad with me
For charts.
just in case. But I've been running through them and making sure that I hit them and like that I can play them right the first time through, mostly without a chart. Like I'm super ready. I mean, a lot of these are songs that I charted and learned last year when I was going through my whole big like learn the wedding repertoire phase.
Right.
So
right.
of the 15, I think 12 of them or maybe 13.
And I'm sure because it is a showcase showing, like,
Yeah.
if you hired us for a wedding.
We would play, for example, these songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
great.
yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
feeling really good. Really good.
I do. It's one of the things that I respect the most about you, and I think you've really contributed to the culture that kind of our little group has of being highly prepared for stuff.
Yeah.
That's just the expectation in our group that you do your homework, and you just definitely do your homework, and I always
Yeah.
have admired that.
I have always been the kind of person who goes home after class and starts doing the homework. Like while it's still fresh in my head. Like I remember in school, rather than like do my homework the day before it was due, I'd go home and I would do my homework the day it was assigned.
Right.
Because then it's still all fresh in my head. Like we just had a class on that. So I've always been a front loader. I am not a procrastinator at all. I like to get it ready and know that I'm ready because otherwise I feel very unprepared and that's not a good feeling for me.
Yeah, I know. I never procrastinate either. I don't.
Yeah, you didn't.
I don't do that. I don't wait till the last minute ever.
I'm just more of a nerd than you are.
You certainly are. Except for music production, because I will say I'm pretty sure This Love is Brendan O'Brien
You are
producing.
a nerd on production.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I do have my guys I'm fans of.
So yeah.
You also went and saw. What was it? Tuesday. You went and saw Joe Mondragon, friend of the pod.
Yep.
He's been a guest, and you went and saw Joe Mondragon at, was it the Lafayette Arts Hub?
Yeah.
Which we've talked about before because we've played there with Cody.
Yep.
At that Lafayette music festival thing. But he was doing the musical Sweeney Todd.
Yep. And he has a part in the musical Beetle is the name of the character. But this was the tech rehearsal. So this was where they were making sure that they were moving the sets around at the right times and they had all the props in the right place and everything.
I'm sure costumes and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was the night that the understudies were taking their roles that they had understudied for. And Joe is the understudy for the lead, Sweeney Todd. So in this, that's why I went to the tech rehearsal.
Oh my gosh, so he was the lead character.
He was the lead character in this performance.
In this performance. Yeah.
And so everybody, like all of the main characters were the understudies. And they were all phenomenal.
Well, I mean, Joe is so phenomenal. I can't imagine.
This is like the not the main part they learned, but it was like the secondary part they learned.
Yeah.
I was really blown away with the talent on stage. Joe and everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, for community theater and even just objectively, like according to any standard, it was... I mean, you think community theater, that can be pretty variable. This was good. This was real good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I almost want to go see it because I have not. That's such a famous... I mean, they made a movie out of it and everything else, and I have no idea what it's even about. I know there's a barber.
It's a barber who is living above his landlady becomes lover, and she has the worst pie shop in London. But... he starts murdering people and contributing their flesh to her pies. And suddenly, she has a very successful pie shop.
Oh, so it's gross. Good. Okay, got it.
But the reason he's murdering people is because he wants to murder the man. Well, there's a love story. There's I won't even get to it. This is not for this podcast. We should probably edit that out.
Whatever. It's Sondheim and people think highly of it, even though it's super gross. And well, it's just maybe we'll go one of those times. But no, I'm sure Joe was.
Yeah, I mean, and it was really cool to see Joe in his element because.
Good point.
He's musical. He's really well trained and he's great at musical theater. And I'm not. And so, like, a lot of times when I've heard him perform, say, harmonies or certain leads, I'm like, well, that's a little over the top for the context. I mean, it's really good. He fits really well with the Man Cubs, which he's in, the Disney covers. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, he's top notch. But sometimes I'm like, that's very choral of you or very musical theater of you. But he is musical theater, and that's, like... I could never pull off what he or anyone else in that cast pulled off. I mean, I guess if I was in a musical theater and I worked on it, maybe I could. But
I mean, if you just had to, I'm sure you'd figure it out. But at the same time, no, he is, and what a remarkable talent.
Yeah.
I mean, his voice is just like...
Yeah. Plus, then he plays all the instruments too.
And he can he can sort of do anything.
Yeah. So lucky to have him on staff.
Yeah.
And literally lucky. I didn't hire him.
That's right.
I inherited Joe from Cody.
Right, that's right.
When Cody was shutting down his studio and returning to just being a solo teacher, I took his student roster, which was not large and didn't last that long, but I took his roster and his teachers, which I think was only one teacher at that point, Joe.
Yeah, because he had been focusing on other things and narrowing down.
Yeah.
And Cody, of course, still teaches. But
and speaking of like the number of different relationships you can have with people in the music world, the first time I met Joe, I guess was when I inherited Joe from Cody, and then after Joe had already been working at Performance High, I subbed in for Sammy Davis in the Rocket Surgeons when they played Hometown for the Holidays at the Oriental Theater.
And Joe
is in that band.
In Rocket Surgeons, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I have to play a show with my boss," and I'm like. Joe.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And I like throwing around that I'm everybody's boss, capital B.
Well, we are planning to seize the means of production at some point.
You guys are taking your time.
We really are. We need to text more often. We've had it penciled in. We just haven't gotten around to it.
Just keep in mind, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
It's very important for me to have that hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're real big on hierarchies.
Real big on hierarchies.
Yeah. But you really can, and that's what's so interesting is there are so many different, kind of relationships that you have in music, and, sometimes someone's playing in your thing, and sometimes you're playing in their thing, and it's just...
Speaking of, I went to Nate and Aurora's baby shower today.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of, like, multiple relationships, we were talking about how, Nate and I, like, he's my bass coach, but also my employee, which I always feel weird saying employee, because, like, I feel like we're all partners here. We're all just, like, pulling for the same goal, but I guess technically I do own the company, so I'm
right. Yeah.
And then also at that, at the event was Jeff Peterson, the drummer.
Killer drummer.
And so I have sung backup in band, like with Jacob Larson Band, where he's the drummer.
Uh-huh.
And now he is going to take voice lessons with me.
Right.
And there's a decent chance I will play bass with him on drums at some Diamond Empire gig at some point. I mean, depends on how much I work, but there's just so many ways that as this world turns and you're in this community, especially if you have multiple skills and you're using them in different contexts.
Right, very true. Yeah.
So don't burn your bridges is the point.
Yeah, for sure. And well, that was great. You got to see Jeff. I mean, he's one of the guys I wish I played with. It's not like I've never played with him, but like...
Yeah, he's subbed in for the Penny Nicks experience way back when. You remember that?
Yeah. Which I loved so much. I mean, Jeff is like... He is one of those musicians who is just like... You talk about like raw talent, firepower. Like that guy... And don't get me wrong, he obviously works very hard on his skills. That's not what I'm saying. But like, man, that guy like... I remember him showing up on that Petty gig and just, man, it was about note for note.
Yeah.
On kind of a lot of music.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, I don't know how you're doing that for a fill-in gig. Anyway, it was great that you guys, got to see those guys. And
Tangents. Excuses.
And Nate, gosh, could there be a better guy?
I know.
Nate, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that because you know he's listening.
Yeah, right. I mainly think he's a good guy because he listens to the podcast.
That's the definition of a quality person.
That's the definition of a quality person.
Do you listen to our podcast?
Yeah. That's the main... So if you're hearing this now, know that we think you're a cool guy. What else? So you were up at Coop.
Yep, I went up to Coop Studios on Saturday afternoon to work with Sherry Nunn, who you mentioned you were finishing up your stuff with her. I was up there kind of just as a vocal consultant for her as we checked some of the final recordings that she had done at Coop, just to make sure that, like, I gave notes about, like, which notes we definitely want to pitch correct, which was not many. It was really...
she's accurate. She's she definitely is.
And just making sure that everything we expected to be there was there, because she'd recorded some of the songs multiple times, like twice, not like tons of times, but she did 2 different versions of a couple of those songs, and we wanted to make sure we were dealing with the final. So
I got it. I didn't hear that much about that, but I did know that because they were doing some of it as more live band stuff, which is, again, not how I prefer to work, but like, well, that's great.
Indeed. And you know who was on some of her stuff was Amy Shelley, the drummer.
Oh, that's so cool.
And Julie Royster on upright bass.
Really?
Who were, maybe Julie wasn't in my jazz band, but she was on my first ever album.
Right.
So I had a jazz band. It started as a Brazilian duo, and then we just added a rhythm section. Way back when. So it was like the first band I started all on my own. So it was the second band. And Carmen Sanjim, who teaches at, I think, DU on keys, was on
right.
keys.
Yes.
and Eric Wiggs was on guitar, and Amy Shelley was on drums, and who was on bass? Maybe it was Julie Royster on bass.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, how like these connections come around again.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. So
Well, it's so great, and Amy even played with AO at least once.
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
She played the Boulder gig.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh, when we were a trio, and
Right.
I was playing bass and singing, and we did like the same 3 songs for like an hour and a half as people ran by at 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
What
it's a weird.
what a gig.
Still have the T-shirt.
You keep your t-shirts. You sure
I
do.
do. I do keep them. Well, gosh, anything else we want to talk about?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it for me. I'm kind of wiped out.
Yeah, I know it has been bit of a marathon since we've been back.
It really has.
Although I'm with you, it is so much more. I think I'm even repeating myself, but it is so much more. You know, just a million things, and trying to like sort of like Lego all these times together than it is like literally that much.
Yeah.
You know,
These are times when I am grateful that I have developed the way of tracking my tasks and my responsibilities that I have, which is a
Right.
very simple one.
yeah,
You know, people think of me as very organized, and I don't know what they think I do to achieve that, but mainly it's calendar reminders and to do one single to-do list.
right.
It is as simple as can be, and I'm just on top of those things, and you know, I've tried all kinds of ways of being organized and managing my time and setting goals and blah blah blah, and the simpler it is, the better for me. I have
I
one
agree.
place.
I mean, I love. You know, there's all these productivity websites like
Yeah.
Trello. It's amazing how it like lets you like move these tasks through. Like, it's great. But the more things you have to log into, the less
Yeah.
likely you are to remember to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just like the more analog it can be. I mean, we both do it on computers, but like, man, just having that
Yeah.
one place where it's all
Yeah.
right here.
So the way I work it is I have my to-do note. So it syncs across my devices. So it's one note that's to do. And at the top, I have like the maybe the 3 things I want to make sure I get done today. Then I have the other things that I either have to do today or I hope to get done today. It's always too much, but I'm fine with that. And then below that, I have like what I plan to do for the next few days. And then I have an entire huge section of like,
It's big.
you've seen it?
Yeah.
It's just called after that. It's like after that stuff, there's an enormous to-do list. And then you haven't seen below that.
No, I haven't.
There's to do eventually. So there's another huge section down there that's to do eventually. And so once a week, I put together my 7 days of things I have to do, and I kind of look through the after that section to see if there's anything I need to pull up and schedule. So anytime there's an idea for something that has to get done, it goes not in the to-do list near the top. It goes in the it'll work its way in after that somewhere. And then the other thing that I do, which Kristen found to be illuminating last week, is, you know, a lot of times when you have a lot of threads going, you send someone an email and you're waiting to hear back from them. Or like you've taken your step,
Right.
and the task is neither done nor can you work on it.
Right. 'Cause
So
it's in motion.
It's in motion.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to lose those threads because you're
Very
like,
easy.
I did my part. I sent an email to this person. So what I do is I just have I put a slash that's just like, yep, I did my part on this. I'm waiting. And those move into a waiting section. So I can clear them out of my my to-do list for today. They're up in a waiting section. And I look at that section every couple days to see
That's really
where
smart
to lose
because
threads.
that is such an easy place to lose the thread on a project is where
Exactly.
you've sent something out for feedback or a response or
Yeah.
you know, the next step is not in your hands.
And that's why I bug you about getting the podcast out oftentimes, because it is still on my to-do list and I can't take it off until I know it's done.
Right.
And so it drives you crazy.
I didn't know that. Gosh, I guess I should check one of those like after that or get done eventually things for violence against me. Probably would be good for me to know.
It would be scheduled if it were in the plans.
I guess that's reassuring in a weird way.
Yeah, you can pretty much see everything that's in my brain by looking at my to-do list.
Yeah, I guess that's reassuring in a way. Well,
That was quite a digression.
anyway,
We
gosh,
should wrap this one.
boy,
Woo!
we sure should. Do we have any sponsors this week?
Oh,
I feel like
we've run out of sponsors. Huh?
we have run out of sponsors. Sure miss those bags of cash they were sending us. Anyway, we are sponsored, as always, by Performance High.
Voice and Music Studio.
And we're going to figure out something else soon. Next week we have a gig. We have a bunch of stuff coming up, so we're going to have lots of fun stuff to talk about. And thank you guys so much, as always, and we will see you soon.
See you next week.
Hopefully on Wednesday.